Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at the Japanese Type 30 bayonet. This bayonet was originally designed to fit the Type 30 Arasaka. However, it went on to fit virtually every other rifle the Japanese made up until the end of the Second World War. So you're looking at the Type 38 rifle, the Type 99, and it also fit a couple of their light machine guns like the Type 96 and Type 99. Light machine gun, not rifle, that is. Now, these were made in very, very large numbers. 8.4 million of them were made, which is quite a large number when compared to some other countries. And they were made by a number of different manufacturers in a lot of different configurations. So they were made by a bunch of the state arsenals like Kokura Arsenal, Koishikawa, Nagoya, but they're also made by a number of private manufacturers, contracted like not Kokura Arsenal, sorry, Matsushita and Toyota Automatic Loom. There were a number of others as well. They're just the the ones I have on hand. But yeah, they were made in a lot of different configurations amongst the manufacturers, with straight guards, hook quillins, blue, no blue, different types of scabbards. Yeah, there's just a huge variety of the way that they were manufactured. And they were issued to absolutely everyone in the Imperial Japanese Army and Navy, from what I can tell. So regardless of what weapon you were issued with one of these bayonets. Even if you're issued with a weapon that didn't take a bayonet, you got one of these. Even if you're issued with a pistol or absolutely nothing at all, you were still issued with a Type 30 bayonet. That's just how it went. So these were first designed in 1897, and that's when they went into production as well, and they made them all the way through until the end of the Second World War in 1945. From what I can tell, there were one or two variations on these with different names, like the Type 35, virtually identical to what we have here. It just has a catch within the crossguard for attaching it to the scabbard, and they were issued through to Japanese Marines. And there were one or two other variations with actual names, but they're made in pretty small numbers, and they're really not worth mentioning. Plus, I can't find too much information on them, so I don't want to embarrass myself by getting it all wrong. So I'll pull one out. I'll have a look at it. I'm very, very fond of these. They're made, well, I reckon they're made quite well. From what I can read, they're not, but that's more to do with the quality of the steel. So the design was, there were a couple of influences. There was the influence of a French blade, as well as like a katana or a samurai sword. So the blade style is obviously that of a traditional Japanese blade. However, the hook quillin and rest of the blade is apparently influenced by a French blade, although that's the only reference I've been able to find. I can't find what the reference to which particular blade it is. So, at a guess, I'm going to guess the 1892 Berthier sword bayonet, but I really don't know. Very, very nice. I like it quite a lot. And they've seen an absolute lot of use. So they saw their first use in the Russo-Japanese War in 1904 and 1905. And Japanese tactics at the time were extremely aggressive. So it was believed that the speed and determination and the will of the soldier was very, very important. And yeah, Japanese soldiers were extremely aggressive, and they would just charge into enemy fire and cut the Russians to pieces. And as a result, the Russians lost every battle, as far as I can tell. They either lost or drew in every land battle, and they lost every naval engagement. So they did quite poorly. And the rest of the world was watching this very, very keenly, particularly England, who at the time was a ally of Japan. And they read all kinds of interesting accounts of Japanese bayonets and swords cutting through machine gun barrels, and Japanese bayonet fighting being superior to the rest of the world. As a result, they took a leaf out of Japan's book, and they actually redesigned their own bayonet. So prior to this, they were using the model 1903, which had like a spear point blade, and this is actually what inspired the pattern 1907, which I'm sure we've all seen. So the 1907 originally came with a hooked quillin, just like the Type 30, and you can see the similarities. Got very, very similar length blade, same profile. 1907's a little bit longer, and the hook quillin, very, very similar, very, very heavily influenced by the Japanese Type 30 bayonet, and for good reason. It's a good bayonet. So obviously, the Japanese absolutely cleaned up the Russians during the Russo-Japanese War, and they continued using these through the First World War and all the way through all the various wars they fought in between the two, in China, Manchuria, into the Second World War. And they maintained the same tactics, which they worked fantastic in China. So they were, as I said, very, very aggressive, and they would stand up and charge into enemy fire, which worked absolute wonders in China, because the Chinese were using bolt-action rifles, and even when heavily outnumbered, being that aggressive and getting close to the enemy demoralised them, broke their formations, and led to victories where otherwise they probably wouldn't win. And that worked very, very well against the Chinese, and they kept using the same tactics through when they were fighting the Americans and the Allies in the Pacific. Unfortunately, it didn't work so well when faced against automatic weapons and machine gun fire. Your Japanese bonsai charges were just mowed down. Didn't fare too well. But no, the tactics, as I said, very, very aggressive. They were all about speed. They had a belief that they had superior training. They were very, very proud, and believed they were naturally better fighters, more courageous, and that natural superiority would see them through the fight if they just played up to it. And it didn't work terribly well. Another part of their training or their tactics was they were very heavily dependent on envelopment, where they would attack the flanks and the centre simultaneously. But very, very interesting. We'll have a look at the construction of the blade. So I've been on a bit of a tangent there. So this is obviously an earlier one, still got the hook quillin. During World War II, the design would be simplified and become quite crude, because they need the war material. They're getting quite desperate. They're losing the war. They start making what we call last-ditch rifles and bayonets and equipment. But these are very, very early. So we've got a nice long blade. I think it's 15 3/4 inch long. Nice deep fuller, both sides of the blade. The blade is sharpened till about halfway down, till about, where is it? Here. So where the sharpening begins. And the idea is a Japanese soldier could deliver slashes with this, as well as thrusts. So whether usually a bayonet is a stabbing or thrusting weapon, the Japanese had the doctrine that was also for slashing. And they used that to pretty good effect. Something else I probably should have covered off on. They also fixed 30cm Japanese flags to these, or bayonet flags. And they were either attached to the tip of the bayonet and the quillin, or the quillin and one of the sling rings on the rifle. You see that all the time in movies and the media, and in historical photos as well. Anyway, moving on, the blade comes down to a nice crossguard. So this is an earlier version with the hook quillin. Now, later on, the hooks would be removed and this had a straight guard. I'm a little uncertain when that's happened. So I've read some accounts that it happened during the late 20s or through the 30s. And the most consistent I've found is that it happened in 1942 when they were simplifying their blades during the Second World War. I don't know if that was the usual reason, because hook quillins get caught on everything, or if it was just for simplifying production to save cost and speed up production. I don't know. But then we've got our wooden grip, same as virtually every other bayonet out there. Nice big pommel, nice deep T-slot mortise, and standard push button. Nothing too exciting there. Now, Scabbards. We've primarily got the two kinds. So we've got the steel scabbard here, and this is primarily what was used up until the Second World War. Pretty well made, nice blue, no hole down the bottom for drainage, which is probably a mistake. Yeah, just standard steel scabbard. Then towards the end of the Second World War, when Japan was starting to run out of steel, they started making bamboo scabbards, and these are very, very cool, very, very collectible. They're a bit rarer. Quite lucky to get my hands on this one. I like it quite a lot. Now, you probably noticed I've got two different kinds of frogs here as well. So, I've got the standard army canvas frog. This is what you'll find the majority of the time. Well, not the majority of the time, a bit of the time. More common than this was probably the leather frog that the Japanese army used. But the canvas ones are pretty common too. So, I haven't actually come across too many of these. This is probably one of 2 or 3 I've ever seen. But yeah, it's a little standard canvas frog. The leather one was very, very similar shape. No real difference. And then the Japanese Navy used a rubber frog. And that's what we have here. And the idea behind the rubber frog is that rubber will not rot. So this could be used by Marines or Navy on the ships. And yeah, it'd hold up a bit better. These are pretty common. I don't like them very much, but cool little bit of history behind them. Now, I don't have a last ditch version, but as the war went on, these got simpler and simpler. So the first simplification was the straight guard. Then you start seeing these with no fullers, and then very, very crudely sharpened blades and no real ricassos or markings. And then really blocky square grips and really blocky square pommels. And yeah, it just gets simpler and simpler, and they're quite collectible because they're a lot less common than the nicer ones like these. And yeah, unfortunately I haven't got my hands on one to show you, but when I do get my hands on one, I'll chuck some photos on my Instagram, or maybe do another video, I don't know. Now, the markings on these are very, very simple. So what you'll come across is your manufacturer's marking on the ricasso of the blade. And you're always going to get symbols like these, and they're just your manufacturer's mark. This one here is for Matsushita, which is a private manufacturer. And then the other two, from memory, are Nagoya. Yep, Nagoya. If you've got one of these and you want to know who made it, just chuck into Google, the manufacturer's markings for Type 30 bayonets, and you'll come up with tables straight away. And yeah, there's a lot of different markings you can come across on these. And other than the manufacturer's marking, the only other marking you'll find is a serial number on the base of the pommel down here. Oh, there's my camera. There we go. Focus, please. Yeah, we all know what a serial number looks like. So I probably glossed over a lot of the history. I'm not the most knowledgeable person on Japanese Type 30 bayonets. Honestly, I was a little reluctant to make this video because I don't want to embarrass myself. It's a subject I'm not terribly well versed in. I tend to stick to the European stuff and the Australian stuff. Even the American stuff I'm not terribly great on, but I'll try my hand and try to get the information to you as best I can. Now, any mistakes I've made, and I'm sure there's been a few, please correct me down in the comments, guys, or send me a message. And if you know any cool anecdotes or really interesting history or information about these that I've missed, again, comment below. I'd love to have a decent conversation with you guys, or maybe even add further information to the description. Or maybe even do another video down the track when I've done some more research and got some more interesting examples to look at. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.